Hello, and welcome to Maplethorn Butler Academy, the premier Butler Academy in this Western Hemisphere, and indeed, in my own personal opinion, the entirety of the world. I am Mr. Maplethorn, the proprietor of this academy, and for the next 10 weeks, I, along with the most duly qualified instructors, shall be your guide and professor in the art of bottling. Now, to begin, let us first describe the duties of the butler in relation to that of the household. It is my own personal observation that many of our students who initially arrive are under perhaps an improper perception or improper impression of the duties of a butler. They believe that they shall be waiting upon their employer 24/7, a constant presence in their life. This is factually incorrect. The butler is the leader, the manager, the chief of staff in a household of wealth and influence. And in proper reflection of this, they are often left independently to manage a household. Our employers being those of significant wealth and influence, those individuals, are not always present in the household. In fact, often the majority of their time is spent abroad on various trips of business or pleasure. Thus, it falls to the butler to manage the day-to-day operations of a household and ensure that when the employer does arrive back to their household, they find that everything is in its place and nothing has gone awry. Or if something has gone awry, it has been effectively and efficiently managed and resolved. Now, I mentioned that the butler is first and foremost a servant, but second, a very close second, mind you, they are a leader. It has always been my opinion that leadership, or those who choose to be leaders, have two particular characteristics. They have the drive, the ambition, and the willingness to undertake the burdens of leadership. But to complement this drive and ambition, they also have a great degree of ability. By simply arriving here today and committing yourself to our bottling course, you have demonstrated the necessary ambition to succeed as a butler. But it is our duty, and my duty in particular, to impress upon you the ability in order to execute your ambitions and dutifully attend to the day-to-day operations of a household and to your employers. Now, let us quickly discuss appearances. Butlers should always be extraordinarily well kept. We are a reflection of the state of the household. If we are in a good, clean, well-kept state, then so too should be the household. But it all starts with our initial appearance. Butlers should always be seen in formal wear. The three-piece suit, as the one that you see that I am wearing, should be the bare minimum requirement, and indeed in several households you will be asked to flaunt white tie apparel, which is a few degrees above the three-piece suit in terms of formality, seeing that it is of a different cut and style. Our hair should always be well trimmed, and any beard or scruff that you might sport in your day-to-day wear should be eliminated during your duties as a butler. Now, you'll see that I am wearing gloves. Gloves are extraordinarily important to a butler because they support one of our chief objectives: subtlety. A butler does not know the definition of the word ostentatious. Every one of their actions should be subtle, completely natural, and indiscernible from the standpoint of our employer or guest. In this fashion, the white gloves greatly support this endeavor. They prevent us from leaving fingerprints or any unsightly smears upon tableware, upon furniture, etc. And thus, the butler should always be seen in gloves. There are lesser schools, lesser academies, who perhaps will enforce the idea that a butler has evolved in his or her duties and his or her function within a household, and thus, and this is absolutely true, and thus, they say, so too should their attire. I concede that the role of a butler is not the same as it was perhaps a century or two ago. We have evolved. But you shall not see the day where I do not require my students to wear white gloves and full butler's livery. It is simply, in my eyes, a gross perversion of the butler and his honorable role within a household to see him not in the utmost formal wear. It so disturbs me to see butlers who are perhaps in jeans or, goodness forbid, a sweatshirt, that I can hardly find the words to express my disconcerted and appalled attitude towards this particular affair. Let us move on swiftly so that we need not spend any more time talking about such affairs. Now that we have talked a little bit about your attire, and throughout the next few weeks of the course you shall be taught how to properly procure and care for your attire, let us discuss some of the duties, some of the hard and fast duties that a butler is charged with. As I mentioned, butlers are the chief of staff within a household, and so it falls to them to procure, hire, and then manage all of the rest of the staff. This includes cooks, maids, other manservants, etc., etc., lorry drivers, and gardeners, for example, would also fall under this category. It is not the role of the butler to manage their operations. The driver, obviously, is a professional, or should be a professional, and thus is capable of caring for his or her vehicle and creating routes that will hurry our employers from point A to point B in the swiftest of fashions, and so too will the gardener be able to manage and care for the garden. It is our responsibility to ensure that those duties are being executed to their full and complete potential. We do not want to direct the gardener in perhaps what individual flowers to purchase, but we do want to give final say on the arrangements which have been chosen and the cuts for the topiary, for example. Nothing should go on in a household without the butler's knowledge. But that is not to say that the butler is above doing the perhaps dirty work of a household. Indeed, one of the butler's first and foremost duties is that of cleaning. Now, whenever a butler is cleaning, he or she should always be uniformed as such. After all, an awful lot of time, care, attention, but perhaps most importantly, money, is spent on the upkeep and maintenance of our attire. It would be a gross shame and incredible lack of care, and demonstrate a complete lack of care, to have it be soiled in any avoidable fashion. For these purposes, then, we wear gloves, very similar to these, when taking on any duties that would require us to dirty our hands. You can see that they are simply slipped on very easily over the white gloves and cuffs of the suit and shirt. One may prefer to remove the gloves, but personally I always think that the more layers of protection that one has, the better. Now you might be thinking, alright, I've procured my gloves, I have them on, but what shall I be cleaning with them? And the answer is, of course, anything that we are told to. But, seeing as that is a rather unhelpful and vague answer, I shall give you a few examples. You see behind me all of the tools that a butler will require, though there are some additional ones which may be purchased. These are the basic essentials of the bottling trade. You'll notice a few polishers, and indeed one of the butler's primary objectives is to keep all of the silver, jewelry, watches, and shoes in good care and polished. The butler should be the only individual within the household charged with these responsibilities. We should be unafraid to delegate some of the more mundane cleaning activities, the vacuuming, the sweeping, the dusting, but the polishing should always fall to the butler. This is because we, being of sound mind and body, are the most responsible people in the household, because we can control our actions. We are not able to control any other actions, but we can control the actions of ourselves. And thus, we can responsibly care for the most valuable things, items, trinkets within a household, the possession of a household. Now, there are always two factors that are incorporated into the polishing process. Could somebody please detail them to me? Just simply raise your hand. Yes, could you also please say your name? Jonathan. And your last name? Shivers. Well, Mr. Shivers, it is very nice to meet you, of course. Could you please detail to us the two primary functions of a polisher? Very good. Yes. The two primary functions, for those who are unable to hear Mr. Shivers. Mr. Shivers, please be unafraid to speak up and allow your voice to carry throughout our classroom, are chemical and physical. Chemical, to remove and dissolve any sort of tarnish which has become present on the metal or dust on jewels, and physical and abrasive material to give that shine to any particular silver or jewelry. This is essential that a butler recognize that there are two functions. It is incomplete to merely slap on the shiner. One must be working with the material and working it in to the thing which is being polished. For example, this is a very simple sugar container from a silver tea set. Now, silver is one of the most common and one of the most desirable materials you will find in a household's tea set. This is there are two reasons why this is the case. Tea sets, of course, come in a variety of materials, ranging from ceramic to metal, but silver is desired because properly maintained and polished silver is one of the most tricky materials to maintain. Silver very quickly loses its luster, and its polish will be gone in a matter of days. As such, the butler should be polishing the silverware of a household no fewer than twice per week. Once a month or once every 2 weeks simply will not suffice. The tarnish will set in, and the polishing process will be made all the more difficult for that. Now, it is also a matter of pride for the butler to polish the silver. Again, we are a reflection of the state of the household. If those items which we manage are in a good, clean state, so too should be the household. Let's set this to the side. You will, of course, over the next few days be taught how to polish and properly maintain for the silverware, but for the purposes of this introductory session, to go into these kind of details would be perhaps undesirable. Now, I mentioned that the butler is in charge of those items and possessions of the household which are most valuable. This is not limited to silverware, and extends to one of the most important charges of the butler, alcohol. For this next demonstration, I shall remove my gloves, as we will no longer be cleaning. And again, a butler should always be seen in white gloves. Unless somebody is specifically watching you clean for some reason or another, the butler should never be seen in cleaning gloves. Let's set these to the side. Now, I mentioned alcohol. It is the butler's duty to purchase and maintain a healthy store of alcohol at all times. Brandies, spirits, cognacs, etc. should all be decanted before they are served. This is always the case. For those of you unfamiliar with the decanting process, I shall show you a glass decanter which we here at the Academy have purchased for this very purpose. Now, brandy. Now you see a decanter, all glass or crystal, of high quality and design. Brandy, if it is being served on the rocks, should be served in a rocks glass. Otherwise, it should be served in a piece of stemware known as a snifter. Knowing these details is essential, because the butler should always be procuring the proper glassware for the proper alcoholic beverage or spirit. Wine, for example, should be served in either a white wine glass or a red wine glass. This is a white wine glass, often confused with a champagne flute. You will see the white wine glass is much wider than a champagne flute and has a much milder taper from the top of the glass down to the stem. A flute would be have a much shorter taper. You should never serve red wine in a white wine glass, white wine in a red wine glass, or champagne in either of the two glasses. All beverages must be served in their proper glass. Now, when procuring varieties of red wine, white wine, or even fruit wines, if your employer deigns to prefer those, you should always be selecting a variety of vintages and qualities. This is because having a cellar strictly full of the highest quality vintages and the most expensive years would be inefficient and improper. Now, when it comes to brandies, spirits, whiskeys, etc., I mentioned that they must be decanted and placed in the correct glass or stemware when serving. I did not mention that you should always have a variety of styles and vintages available, for much the same reason why you should have a variety of vintages available for red wine and white wine. Now, the final thing which I would like to discuss today with you is, before we move on to our second session, is the presence of a butler in a household. To the staff, we should be a reliable yet firm leader. To our employer, a stoic and trusted confidant. The key to both of these duties is to not allow for gossip, or rather to not permit gossip and engage in it in any fashion. For example, one should not allow gossip within the general household. The personal lives of the staff should remain just that, personal. And if the butler were to stumble across a piece of information which is rather sensitive and personal, it should be kept solely to the butler. We are the confidant. We are the locked chest in which secrets are confided and stored forever. We do not engage in any loose-tongue activities, and we certainly do not drink to excess, such that our inhibitions would be lowered and our tongues loosened. Now, I save that for the end because I want to impress upon you just how multifaceted and just how important, just how multifaceted the duties are of a butler, and just how trusted the butler must be within a household. We can do nothing to betray this trust because all of our duties and functions are built upon a mutual understanding and respect between ourselves and our employer, and ourselves and the rest of the house staff. Now, thank you very much for your attention, and Mr. Shivers, thank you for your participation. It is my pleasure to declare that we shall be having tea in about 20 minutes, and thus I challenge you to find your correct placements within the serving hall, and for those of you who have been assigned tea serving duties, to please report to Professor Blackenshire for to be assigned your roles and duties within the next half hour. Please remember to keep an open and responsive attitude to everything which you are about to learn. This is an incredibly detailed and valuable course. It will set you on a new path, one that will see you desired and successful within any household which you should find yourself employed in. Tomorrow we shall be learning about the care, maintenance, and procural of the butler's dress, which includes the ironing and starching of any type of clothing, as well as the packing away for the employers of any sort of away bag which they might want. Now, off you pop, and I will see you in 20 minutes for tea. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.